Hey there, this is Bob Nalbandian with the Shockwave Skull Sessions podcast and the Inside Metal documentary series. Just want to let you know you are tuned into Poppet's Corner.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Poppet's Corner. I always like to say these things, right before we get started with them, but this is a very special episode. It's a unique episode, and I hope you guys will take the ride with me. And of course, the one and only Miss Leah Scott Price. How you doing today, Miss?
I am great. Hi guys. Hi Tanner. How are you? And how's everybody?
We're doing well, doing well. So hopefully you're doing the same. Now how this typically works, what I would do with a musician or a I don't know, any type of person in this community is I like to go through their entire musical career and whatnot. And with you, it's going to be a different story. And because obviously you're like a comic book kind of writer. So, you have a very unique kind of support for us bands that I want to get to. We'll touch upon it in doing this interview and whatnot. But for now, I'd like to kind of go back to the beginning and whatnot. Just kind of find out where you specifically came from, and I guess how you found music for the first time.
Sure. First of all, I love how Poppet's Corner has really grown. I mean, I saw you had Angelo and Heretic on list, recently, and I got to listen to that. So they're one of my favorite bands. Okay, so where do I start? Obviously, I'm not a musician, although we'll get to that. There's something I need to say about that. I'm an artist, so I would say kind of a metal artist, metal supporter. How I got involved in the metal community in the beginning was my ex-hubby, as you know, Mike Naz, was the guitarist for the death metal band Enthraller. And I used to videotape their shows. So basically, I was their roadie, and I helped run their merch booth. They frequently played at, the Key Club. They would Exhumed, Abysmal Dawn, Dying Fetus Grave, Macabre, and the Five Star Bar, Stardust, all those local places. So that was the first time I actually became a fan of death metal. So, and all of the local bands that they started playing with. And I officially became a metalhead after that. So
Interesting. So you didn't right off the bat become a metalhead at an early age. You kind of developed it later. Now, what about the extreme music pulled you in, so to speak?
It was when I first started hearing Enthraller. And also when Stefan, their lead singer, they had like a little get together and he started playing all the death metal bands for me, specifically Decapitated. And that was my first time hearing that. And I'm like, what rock have I been hiding under? This is amazing. So after that, it's like mainly I do have to credit my ex with introducing me to all that music. I mean, Mike Nass, I will have to say he's a fantastic guitarist. I mean, you know him, you've seen him play and all that. And then in I think 2013, was that Maidens of Metal 2?
Oh gosh.
I think because I got a message from Angie Gabriel of Metal Invictus, and then she said, "Hey, come on and be a vendor." I'm like, sure, okay.
Wait. What were you? How did you guys hook up, and what were you vending? I didn't even know you were a vendor per se.
I know. And I was surprised because I'm going, she's a promoter. This is a metal show. And I guess she had seen the comic books and kind of said, oh my God. So, I mean, they're brutal, bloody vampires. So I'm like, so why not? So I decided, yeah, sure. So I brought my little table and all my comic books, and that's where I first saw you play. I
Was that
remember that. That was with
the
that was
barbecue? The
with
barbecue?
no, I think that was Insentient
Oh my
and
gosh.
Mocking of the Trinity.
I never played with them,
And oh, you didn't? I
but
don't
I was there.
remember.
That I was
Okay,
there.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
maybe it was in the next Maidens of Metal, but you were there. It was at the Vex. I first met you at the Vex. I first saw your show. I have photos, but I think that was other than I think did you play with Cerebrus?
Oh, multiple times. Yeah, it just
Okay,
depends
okay,
where.
there, yeah, yeah. Cowgirls from Hell. I think at that time that's Inquisition.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
that was the show. That was the show. Yeah. So Exterminate. I
Oh,
remember they were off
right.
to the side. Yeah. So that was the first time that I was like at a real show, and I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. And after that, I started going to the airliner to let's see shows. There was one, oh my goodness, I went to Maidens of Metal 4, and I think that was 2015 with Blade Killer, Cowgirls from Hell, and Sisters of the Black Moon. So yeah, so that's when I was starting to get more into the shows. And then one Christmas, I got a surprise package from Angie. She gave me a ton of CDs from Nuclear Blast. So it got like Testament, Municipal Waste, all that, and so it's like more of the old school kind of thing. And so I was starting to get more into all the old school death metal too. And then I heard your album, Maleficent, and I played it. I remember telling you this. I played it on a very long drive to Lancaster, and it kept me awake the whole time. I was like playing Desecrator and Zombie Grinder, and I was just like singing along, and it was just like, and so that's basically how I started. I know I met Dan Dismal at the airliner. Oh God, Anna Hummel. And Adrian, how could we forget Adrian?
Yeah, of course.
And Adrian was the very first person who started, you know, contacting me and saying, "What, how you doing? Here's some music you should listen to." I know Alex Vallecillo also told me, like, they should also listen to black metal, and that's how I got into that. I mean, there's just so much. That's
Totally.
how I got started.
Well, let's go back again. So, what were you vending at the 2013 Maidens of Metal?
The comic books. I
Oh,
had
so
just
okay,
released. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. I just released issues 1 and 2 and 3 at that time, and I was like, oh sure, why not? And at that, I think it was also because Enthraller was in the first issue of the comic
okay,
book,
okay.
and they were also in issue 2. So, because there was a metal band in the comic books, then, I started, uh, I guess that got a little bit of notice from Angie, and she said, yeah, why not? I mean, you got a band in the comic book, so go ahead and promote it there. So like,
Hey,
okay.
and I'm good. Let's get to it now, so we can obviously talk a little bit more about this specific aspect. And what I mentioned earlier was you have a very unique way of supporting bands, and I kind of want to know. I mean, the essence of one starting the comic book, and I'm going to go ahead and show this. You would
Oh,
obviously you would have us bands as vampires and whatnot in it,
yeah,
and be a part of the story, so to where it's a very unique, I don't know, it's a very unique like support way of supporting us bands. So like
right.
talk a bit about how you came to this, I don't know, this whole kind of thing that you have developed for yourself.
Well, it started out as on the very first issue, my artist actually asked me, you have background actors, you have background people, and you don't, instead of the main characters, how do you want them to look? I'm like, oh, good Lord, I have no idea. And all of a sudden, click, I'm like, band members. Why don't I throw Enthraller in there just for fun? So I talked to the guys. They're like, yeah, sure. So, I turned them into vampires in like certain scenes that just needed like, a little background and stuff like that. Like someone walking down the street or people chilling or vampires eating other people. I don't know. So yeah, that is Death Embraced. And and most of the scenes in the comic book also had an actual band playing in the background. Like there was a scene in the club. So I started getting people from bands that I knew and, just kind of threw them in. And then that was kind of like a fun way to promote. And of course, I mean, they didn't have to pay for the comic books. I just gave it to them for free. It's like, here, promote it. And then for you guys, I remember, I think it was Warfest, in one of Adrian's Warfests. And at that time, we were with Highland and Arachnagod. And we all got together. Remember, we were just standing out there. And all of a sudden I said, why don't we have Arachnagod fight Madrost in a comic book with instruments? So it's kind of like, and you go, yeah, that would be cool. So we threw that in issue 6, just for fun. So
yeah. But so with this in mind and whatnot, so it's like I said, it's a very unique, and I've never seen it before where like, they somebody local putting in local bands within, like a local comic book, to where it's a different avenue that us bands could reach another whole new audience or whatever. So I want to thank you for that in advance. And
you're welcome.
but was some of these bands kind of, what impressed you about the bands that you specifically picked?
Well, one, because I knew you guys, and second was because I loved the music. I mean, I worked with Enthraller for quite a while, and also, I became a fan of Madrost. I became a big fan of Highland and Arachnagod, and a lot of the other bands kind of, aren't playing right now, but that's okay. I mean, you still represent them at that time. And it was just more of how to honor the local scene, the local music, because this was my community, the metal community. It was also kind of like a family thing. It's like I don't want to put just anyone in a comic book. I just want to put people who I care about and who I admire and who I feel that maybe they could get something out of it and, immortalize them. I mean, why not immortalize the metal community, especially our local community in there? So that was my thought process. I was like, I got to do this. Why not?
Interesting. It's kind of, it's almost like what we're doing here on with these podcasts and whatnot, is documenting and cementing our history. And
exactly.
You found a very unique way of doing that. So again, like kudos to you, because who else would do that? You know what I mean? So now let's move ahead real quick. So like 2013, 2014, I would say, was more of like the airliner kind of, when the airline was kind of booming, and I started to go, I personally started to see you around this particular venue a lot, was the Vex and the airliner, because obviously we were ingrained with, Metal Invictus, and a huge rest in peace to Angie and Adrian, who are obviously no longer with us, sadly. But during around that time, what about her shows made you kind of want to keep coming back, and the vibe that it specifically provided for you personally?
Right. Well, first of all, I am so grateful to Angie and to Adrian. They really, they made such a huge impact in my life. I mean, if it wasn't for them, I would have never met the metal community. I would have never gone to shows or got to know you guys or anything like that. But The first thing that comes to mind is family. I mean, you go in there and it's just like you've known everybody forever, and it's just like a whole feeling of family. It's kind of hard to express, but I think everybody would understand. I mean, if you go there, it's kind of like it's home. It's almost like a second home, and everybody was so welcoming. I would also help Angie at the door. Most of the time, I don't know if you've seen me. I'd be like collecting tickets and staffing people. It's just like collecting money, and then Adrian, I'd see him running around with the camera and all that stuff, and I'd try to like buy him water or something like that, or just and then buy Angie drinks. And my favorite memory of her was like I bought her a drink one time. It was like $16 for this tiny, tiny little, little. I don't know what I remembered was, but she was like the whole night just like $16 for this. Oh my God, $16! I go have another one. Yeah, but it was just like something worth supporting. You don't see this every day. You see a lot of people supporting the more bigger names, the more bigger bands, and that you don't have a connection to that. You don't know the people. I mean, you're fans, but it's almost like something that's trendy, But with our community, it's not, oh, this is the trend one night, this is the trend the next night. No, no. You kind of go and you really support because you see a lot of people who are extremely talented. I mean, one time somebody asked me, it's like, why do you like the metal shows? I go, because have you ever seen them play? Have you ever seen them play live? You know how amazing it is? You know how you have to be so skilled with those instruments? I mean, this isn't like, some manufactured canned stuff. This is like real. And when you get into it, you really get into it.
Do you think that kind of came from your integrating within Enthraller per se, because you kind of saw Mike going through the same kind of things that any band would go through, the
Up the
dramas.
airliner, steps down the airliner.
Yeah, just right. But but that made you appreciate more of the musician, rather than say just somebody else that wasn't really familiar with what a musician would kind of go through within the local kind of community or just a gig in general.
Right. It's almost like we're so underground. It's almost like we're not as appreciated as, let's say, I've watched Mike be in other bands before, other than metal, and it's just not the same connection. It's just not the same feeling until he got into Enthraller. So it's almost like you have to do your own promotion, you have to do your own marketing, you have to play as much as you can to get an audience. So in a way, it's almost like I relate completely to that because we're all artists and we're all trying to do the same thing. It's all independent work. And to me, that is very, very difficult to do sometimes, but you have to do it, as an artist, as a creator.
And that would go for pretty much everyone in the scene, though. And here's where I'm going with this. You got the promoters,
yes,
photographers, videographers,
right,
artists such as yourselves.
Yep.
People like Tony Cole who are doing the artwork for us bands, us
especially
musicians.
Tony, yes.
but what I'm saying is our scene isn't just musicians. Our scene is a whole community of a whole collection of different kind of people that make it run so well, or it doesn't go anywhere. That's kind of the feeling that I was getting just going to through Metal Invictus and whatnot, and I'm sure it sounds like it's the same for you, where it's kind of bigger than what me and you are. It's a collective of just so many other things that we can't even explain. So that's what made it so much fun, and we kept kind of going to these specific shows and whatnot, and I think we've kind of lost something with some of the people that aren't are no longer here
Yeah.
anymore. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to look like after this whole spiel, but I'm hoping that at least
Right.
we'll be a little bit more aware of kind of, you know, what's in our local backyard and more appreciative of it.
Right.
And, you know, for you though, let's go to the next stages of, you know, 2013, 14, and 15 and whatnot. What were you kind of doing, you know, with this in mind, with the comic book? Were you kind of marketing it to, like, I don't know, other cons or something? Did you go to Comic-Con and promote it, or like what are some of the different avenues that the comic book provided, maybe
Yeah.
that our scene couldn't provide?
Well, I
For
went to LA Comic Con, and also back when it was Comikaze, then it became Stan Lee's Comic Con. So I'd have my own little booth there and all the comic books, and basically meeting a lot more people, a lot more fans. So basically doing exactly what other bands do, promoting, you know, handing out stickers, handing out flyers. A lot of Angie came by, a lot of people came by from the metal scene. So, you know, Andrew Melendez shows up dressed up as Jesus. Oh my God. So yeah, it's more like, it's not just there. It's more like everybody supports each other. I show up at their shows. They showed up at the con. Also because they were cosplaying, you know, also because they're also comic book fans, anime fans. I mean, it's broad. It all mixes in together. You know, it's not just one or the other.
did you
So
Mhm. Did you start to see, though, a correlation of kind of the same kind of environment where it was family with doing the comic books and going to conventions and whatnot? You know, was it the same with going to a show
yeah,
and what?
oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I mean, for the 4 years, I believe that I was going to the cons, you know, they became family as well. So it's kind of like we're in a way, we're all entrepreneurs, aren't we? We're all kind of a mix of business and creative people. So whatever you guys do, we do. I mean, we're all artists, we're all creators. So it doesn't matter where we are, we're always kind of, you know, expressing our art. So it was kind of like that vibe that you go along. Like I'll meet you and oh my God, you're an artist, you're a musician, great, you know, and or you're a cosplayer, or you're a sculptor. I mean, you do metal art. And I remember Adrian putting on this show. Metal Invictus put on the Leah Fest, or the Vampire Guardian Angel Fest, where it wasn't about me. I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be about all the artists. So I said, let's invite all the metal artists that we know: Tony Arredondo, Tony Cole. So we set up, you know, outside in the patio, all the art, and the people and the bands who came to play. So it was kind of like a artist music fest. So it's like it was so great to see that everybody in a metal community comes together to do a showcase. So, you know, that's kind of like what I really loved about the community. We all support each other.
And it's not, like I said, because of Angie and whatnot. She was really the spearhead to doing that. Her
Yeah.
and Adrian,
Oh
I'll
my God,
always
yeah.
credit for, you know, for
They get the
taking a
full
chance.
credit. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, for taking the chance on something new and exciting. And I think that's
Right,
why it appealed to me specifically, because it was
right,
something. It wasn't like I would go see all these huge bands, and it was great. I liked seeing the huge bands where,
right.
you know, you see certain people that only come out to those huge bands and whatnot.
Yeah,
But I always had a much further connection with what was happening in specifically in my backyard with Orange County and LA and San
right,
Diego.
right.
So it was just nice to see somebody else taking chances, and then all of us kind of getting together and knowing exactly what we were there for without having to say it. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yes, that's exactly what makes sense. And I mean, full credit really goes to Angie. I mean, she had so many great ideas, and Adrian was just unbelievable. I don't think we'll ever see any people like that ever again. I mean, it'll be hard. You know,
But
it's a huge loss. I just, I mean, I just remember just these people are just amazing. I mean, I have no words whenever I think of them. It's yeah.
I think we have to just be grateful that it actually happened, and I'm
Yeah,
eternally
yeah,
grateful to have been a part of that specific
right.
moment in time with all you guys and whatnot. And obviously we're still going and doing it, even to this day and probably for
Yeah,
years to come, right? But
right.
just that particular moment in my specific life, and it seems like with yours, was just a very special time that maybe we didn't realize what we had until obviously
Yeah.
now. But
Yes, yes. I'm
can
I'm eternally grateful to them too.
did you now? What were you doing after? I don't know, because you have 6 issues so far that I specifically know of. But
Right.
what were you kind of doing even after the 6th issue? Were you planning on doing a 7th and 8th? And I know we don't have to get into health issues and whatnot, but
Right.
what were you kind of doing creatively wise?
Oh, I already because after the health issues, as you know, and the cancer stuff, I decided I couldn't go to any more shows. I couldn't go to any more conventions because I was really bad shape. But I was still promoting flyers. I mean, I'll do what I can online. So I turned everything digital. I made my booth digital on patreon.com / Leah Scott Price. And I made issue 7, 8, 9, and 10. So there are 10 issues now, and one graphic novel. I know Valkyrium is in one. Anger is Art is in one. Andy is in one. I drew him in one as an angel, as a vampire guardian angel. I still, yeah. So I think, yeah, Steve was in there. Steve Gaines, and I know Andrew Melendez was, and so I mean it was like putting in friends as well. Ed from Death Inquisition, I threw him in one too. Oh no, that was issue 6. Anyway, but yeah. So and then after that, I did a graphic novel, and then I started doing animation. So I turned the comic books into little mini animation episodes. Uh, and I actually wrote a black metal song, a black metal tune to go with the trailer for the animation. So I wrote the piano piece, and it was Errol Ulug of Bright Light Studio who put the whole thing together. My boyfriend's brother, his name is Chris Condi. He was a bassist for Graf Orlok and Dangers. It was a hardcore punk band. So he helped me with the guitar part and the bass part. So we kind of all put it together. Errol did the drums and the screaming, and the vocals. And now I actually have this little tiny piece that I wrote. So I'm so proud of it. And I'm going to do more for the entire animation. I'm going to do a full length one. So it's going to be more of a black metal kind of theme.
Now, how did you get into art in general and drawing in general?
Let's see. Ooh. Oh, okay. So my artists, I used to hire artists to begin with from issues 1 to 6. And after a while, I decided, well, I want to start doing it myself to see if I could really draw. So I hired an artist, Andrew Huerta, and he used to work for DC and all those, and IDW and all those other comic books companies. And he started teaching me how to draw. And it took 2 years for me to learn. And then the inking part was done. I learned at a place called Meltdown Comics with Jim Higgins. He was my art instructor. He was with DC as well. So I was actually learning from really good top artists. And they just kind of taught me the basics. And then I decided to do issue 6, was actually the first one I drew. And it was inked by my artist, by Andrew Herta, but we worked together on it. So it's like, if I'm going to do a comic book, I'm going to start doing it myself. So that was kind of like the trial. And then after that, I did everything else myself. I was really cool.
It's amazing
So,
that you've done it so, no, I wouldn't say late in the game. You know,
right,
it just shows that you know, if you put your mind to anything, you can do it. It's just amazing that you did it, you know, in not in your 20s, let's just say, you know, it's like,
yeah,
so it's kind of cool because obviously most of us artists start at a young age and whatnot, but you
right,
managed to kind of do it at, you know, so I don't know, it's such a short time span
right,
and make us such a quality kind of comic book. So that's hugely
right.
impressive to me. Now let's go to uh what you were saying excuse me beforehand with you know, obviously you have 10 issues in a book, but are you with that what is the next kind of venture after this? You know, do you want to do it like, I don't know, say an autobiography or something like that, and incorporate you know, the comics and how you kind of, I don't know, got started and whatnot, just to have something
Right.
for you?
Um, but I mean, like you can see, I threw myself in the comic book as a vampire queen or something like that. So it's like a vampire fighter. It's actually got a lot of my own personal history in it. In the animation to begin with, in the graphic novel, it's more of the background that I have that I was kind of throwing in it, like a more historical background. Um, I did recently a family history kind of thing, and found out that my history was more of Spanish nobility, which is in the comic book, as the background of the character. And then I'm working more in a prequel, which is, you know how the Aztec Empire had their ancient kings. Well, in the Philippines, we also had ancient kings. So I actually have a direct line to that as well. So in the comic book, you know, I'm supposedly a princess or a queen. Well, in reality, that really is kind of like my background that I'm just finding out about. So I'm like, oh my God, this would be kind of really, really cool to throw in because I really am a vampire queen, I guess.
Now can you give me just a great Adrian slash Angie story, or one of, or both, or either or, because I would love to get more of this documented.
Sure, sure. Oh, where do I start? Adrian was my photographer for a little while. I mean, he and I would just like go out and say, "Hey, you want to do some photos?" I'm like, "Okay." So we'd go downtown. We'd find some like big churches, and you know, we'd go out and he'd take some photos, and then you know, I'd use those as my publicity material, and then I treat him out to Korean food. And then I just remember he'd be so excited when I picked him up. I was like, let's go here, let's go there. I'm like, okay, come on. So he never accepted any money from me. I'm like, dude, I need to pay you. And I remember after that art show at the airliner, Jimmy came up to me and he had like a wad of cash. He goes, "This is for you." I go, "Why?" No, it's not my show. Give it to Adrian. Get him a new camera or something. He's like, "Okay." So I said, "Don't just." And Adrian is so hard to get him to accept stuff. You know that it's just pay him for his time. He was like so stubborn and generous. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy you food. How about that? It's like, okay. So and then Angie, oh man, I remember she came over one time with littles, and I was going to help her because she wanted to do. I don't know if she's ever told anyone that she was trying to do a book on the metal community with photos and stories. So I was actually helping her with that. So she'd come over and I tried to show her how to self-publish and all that. And so Littles wanted to take a swim in a swimming pool that we had in our apartment complex. So I'm like, okay, sure. So we sat there and we were just talking and talking, me, her, and Mike. And when we got back to the apartment, Mike's cat, Pazuzu, was sitting on the sofa. And the minute we all walked in, he just jumped up and scrambled, slid across the floor. I mean, just like, and she was laughing so hard. She was like, I go, you can come over anytime. Littles can come over anytime. You guys can party. I don't go swimming. So it was just those little times that you had, one on one. And she was telling me about her life. She was telling me about how, and I've written about this in her memorial stuff on my Facebook pages. She specifically said that metal saved her life. And if it wasn't for metal, she'd still be in really bad situations. And I told her, yeah, you guys, in a way, I mean, metal really did save my life too, because I was going through some really shitty times, and all I had to do was play that music, or go to the airliner, or go hang out, and it made things a lot easier.
I think I could say the same for me. I think,
Yeah.
and not to put myself in the story here, but I just feel that there's that commonality between us all, whereas
Yeah.
the music could do that for all of us.
Oh yeah.
And it's just it's so true. It's like I don't know where we would be I don't know where I would be specifically without metal and whatnot. And you're right. It's those little things with these with us people that just those are the memories that we'll always kind of hang on to.
Right.
Nobody else will understand it, obviously, besides us who are kind of there and whatnot. So, but let's I want to thank you again for coming on and spending a couple minutes with me, and hopefully we can do this again sometime, and we can get more of your kind of story documented. But lastly, where can people find, if they want a physical copy of the Vampire Guardian Angels, where can they find it?
It's on patreon.com/my name, Leah Scott Price. And they can go on that page and they can, there's a link to Amazon. They can find the issues on Amazon. Issues 7 through 10 are all digital. So, and it's actually, the entire series is also digital. So they can find that. They can find the animation on my YouTube page. The images where you guys are, the bands are, I mean, they're all free. I mean, you don't have to pay for anything to look at that. I mean, why would I charge the bands to look at their own images? So, so that's where it is, patreon.com/Leah Scott Price.
Absolutely. Well, Miss Lee, I really want to thank you again for coming on and hanging. It really does mean a lot. And hopefully we could do, something in the near future whenever you get a new book out and whatnot. You're always welcome on the show. So I just appreciate everything you do and the uniqueness to what you do for this community. So, thanks for everything.
Thank you so much.
Now, another episode of Papa's Corner, guys. I'm out. Cheers.